Hey, hello again. How are you? Oh, yeah, cool. I'm good. Um, Welcome back to another video, which I think this one is now going to be the sixth. I'm not sure if I can count. Um, but I want to continue building, of course, on what I've said before. So basically, to recap everything we've talked about, we is me and whoever's listening, I guess. You can talk at the screen if you want. Um, What we've talked about so far is, first of all, why astrology is interesting as a sort of mythological study, a way to talk about a sort of formal logic structure, a way to just sort of play with the world and understand yourself, understand your environment. It's also fun, I'll say, to look up other people's astrology and say, oh, you're that thing, oh, cool. Um, in a way that, again, is not to pigeonhole anyone, but just to be like, just because it's like a fun game, I guess. So then we talked about the different planets and how they represent different aspects of you and have been represented as gods in, say, for example, Hindu mythology. Then we looked at the zodiac signs and how those are different characters and how you can understand them through the four elements and through the three stages of each element. And then after that, we were talking about what it means to have the different planets in the different signs. So what it means if my sun is in Leo versus if my sun were in Scorpio, or something else. And then last time we were talking about the different aspects between the planets in the different signs and how you can look at it as a sort of geometry that describes different shapes that we use, and you can kind of get a little bit of an intuitive understanding of the relationships there. And before we go on, I really want to build just really briefly on that. Something I had talked about, for example, if you have a sextile between two aspects, that means that it's 60 degrees, which is effectively two signs away. And for example, the use that I used last time, if you have, here's my chart, Leo, here's Leo, and then two signs away is Libra. What I had said before is that you could have sextile, you could make a sextile hexagon with all the fire and air signs, or you could do it with all of the earth and water signs. And the fact that with sextiles and trines, they form aspects with either the same element itself, like a trine between all fire signs, or for fire, they form it with air, and for water, they form it with earth. There's another sort of more simply unifying aspect to the elements that makes understanding aspecting angles, can't use that word too many times, huh? Which makes it more easy to understand, and that is that the elements, the four different elements, can be divided into two categories. More simply, into masculine and feminine, or we call it yin and yang. You can call it dark and light, you could call it up and down, you could call it in and out, lefty righty. It doesn't really actually matter what they are. It's just designating two different sort of opposites, right? And so the masculine yang signs happen to be fire and air, and then the feminine yin signs are earth and water. So when you have, if you're looking at aspects between planets and signs, if you have two of them that are the same sign, or they're both the same sex, gender, if I want to call it yang or yin, then you're going to have a harmonious aspect. And then if you have, say, one yin and one yang, or one masculine and feminine, then there's going to be a conflict. So that's like what you would see in a square. For example, my square that I referred to before is Leo and Scorpio. So that's fire, water, which is masculine and feminine. And one way to think about it sort of gestorally is when you have a conversation between masculine and feminine, and just think of sort of the stereotypes that we have, like in, say, TV shows, of how men and women don't understand each other. So this kind of idea is similarly seen through the different angles and aspects that we see with planets in different zodiac signs. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to talk about really in this video is, say that you studied all of these different things, which could take a long time to sort of get the gist of all of it. Say that you studied it, then the next thing that you're able to sort of bring to this, add another layer of depth, is this thing that we call houses. And so houses are in some ways related to the zodiac signs because there are 12 houses, just like there are 12 zodiac signs. And initially, the first house is related to Aries, the second is related to Taurus, and so on, all the way through until the 12th house is related to Pisces. But the way that houses are different than everything that we've done so far is the houses are now, we're starting to look at different aspects in your life, different aspects where your personality is interfacing with the world in a way. So you can think of all the stuff that we said so far as maybe like all the stuff that's inside, and sort of the way that we're seeing things, but then now the houses are this part of my life. For example, the 6th house is related to the sign of Virgo, and it's related to your work, or maybe other qualities of Virgo, like your everyday routines. But it's related to some sort of more concrete aspect than just this part of your personality, this way you feel about things or how you act. It's related to what's sort of out there and external. So the houses are created by your rising sign. That is the constellation that is rising as you're born, is the definition of your first house, and it's also called your ascendant. And that's because, like I'm looking at my chart right here, that's because the way that the houses in the zodiac is split up gives you this sort of picture of the horizon of the earth. So in mine, again, here over here is my rising sign in Capricorn, and this is sort of where the earth is, and up above is all of the constellations. And so because of the way that the constellations are slowly rising. First this one, see, they're going in this direction, up around. So Capricorn is rising, and then a couple hours later, this is what's going to be on it, what's going to be on the horizon, and Aquarius is going to rise, and eventually Pisces is going to rise, 4 hours later. And so this is the first house right here. And so the houses are delineated. If you just go online to some free birth chart thing, then it will give you this. It will only give you the houses if you know exactly when you were born, or within half an hour, whatever, some ballpark time frame. And it's because, like I said, the houses are defined by your rising sign. So because I know exactly what time I'm born, I know that a Capricorn was rising, and so that is the definition of my first house. And then actually my second house is right here. It starts in Pisces. So your houses are not, it's not going to be that the whole sign of Capricorn right here is my first house. It just means that Capricorn was on the horizon, so this point right here, this line marks the beginning of this house. So even though most of this house on my chart is like, the bulk of it is in this sign Aquarius, it's defined as being in Capricorn. And then for me, my second house is defined as being in Pisces. And my third house is defined as being in Aries. And then it goes around like that. So that's kind of two different layers there of things that you can look at with regards to houses. The first is to understand what the houses mean, and you can look it up online everywhere. I have it up here right now on Wikipedia, wikipedia.org/wiki/house_astrology, and it has the houses listed. It says house, sign, Latin motto, translation, modern title of house. So the first house is Aries, and it's essentially the house of self. So then there's an interpretation here. For Aries, it's physical appearance, traits, and characteristics, first impressions, general outlook into the world, ego, beginnings, and initiatives. Second house of Taurus is value. Third house of Gemini is communications. Fourth house of Cancer is your home and your family. So this is showing you how the things that your personality aspects are interfacing. This shows you, for example, in the fourth house, which is related to Cancer, how your family life is, how your, it says here, ancestry, heritage, roots, early foundation, environment, mother figure, because Cancer is also related to the moon. So that actually, what I just said, is an interesting other aspect that makes some of this seemingly so complex. And maybe it is not seemingly, maybe it just is. But each house corresponds to a sign of the zodiac. And each zodiac sign, like I said before, has a planetary ruler. And so each house, therefore, has a quality of that planet in it. But again, houses are more about where you see it. So the first part is that you can look up what each house means. And then the second part is you can grab your chart and you can just go into Google and say, for me, first house Capricorn or Capricorn ascendant. And then I can say second house Pisces. And it will give you an idea of how those different 12 aspects of your external life can be interpreted as being seen through the filter of a different zodiac character. So just as I have planets in different zodiac signs, and that's showing me facets of myself, the houses also have different sort of zodiac signs that are showing a quality there. So that's a second added layer of meaning after you start to understand here, you start to understand there, and it just keeps going and going and going. Okay? So that's it for today. Well, actually not today, but just for this video. And I will talk more. Thank you.